ago now, when Lands was one of the bigger decks in Legacy, when there wasn't so much graveyard hate running rampant, nor was Dredge that big of a deal, where you would play your explorations, your mana bonds, and this deck was really based around the Life in the Loam engine and cycling lands. You get to just see a ton of cards per game. The spells in this deck are 1 Zoran Orb, 1 Crucible of Worlds, 4 Exploration, 1 Snaring Bridge, 3 Punishing Fire, 3 Intuition, 4 Life in the Loam, 2 mana bonds, 4 Mox Diamonds, which is a spell but also a land, and 1 Engineered Explosive. And the goal of this deck is just dredge a lot of lands and put a bunch of them into play, and they all do something.
It looks like Johnathan starts off with a turn 1 Delver and then goes for the aggressive upkeep Brainstorm, I think is what happened here. I didn't see if he actually triggered the reveal. I'm getting a nod that that is in fact what happened. Tom also on a mulligan to 5. Note that he has Exploration, but he did not turn 1 it, playing around Daze.
Yep.
When you're on a mulligan to 5, you are especially wary of trading your cards with your opponent's worst spell.
Yeah, I would
and
not want
Daze
to
is
do
the worst spell in the Rug Delver deck.
Now, looking at this Rug Delver deck, one of the cards that's actually interesting here is that island. That's a little bit surprising.
Island.
You normally don't see basics in this deck. And speaking of Daze, that is the card that's being revealed to Delver Secrets to turn that into an Insectile Aberration.
That's actually a pretty peculiar reveal. Like, he must be really light on actual spells. No, I see he has a Forked Bolt in his hand. He probably sees a forest, thinks maybe my opponent's on a creature deck. I don't want him to know I might be able to 2-for-1 him with a Forked Bolt, so I'll just show him off this Daze.
Yep.
Because most people know that the Rug Delver deck plays Daze anyway. They're willing to play around it. He doesn't lose a lot of value. But in actuality, like, that was one of the few cards in his hand with real text.
Yeah. So normally, it's kind of funny that you see a basic land here because Tom's hand does have at least 1 Wasteland. He also has 2 copies of Schadenport. So normally when you're playing against Rug Delver, your Wastelands are turned on. But right now, they're a little bit worse because of this basic island. And you are going to see a Rashad Port here from Tom. A little surprised that he's electing not to play the Exploration this time. You can't play around these cards forever, especially when you're mulligan to 5. You can't play around. You can't try to play around Spell Pierce and Daze and everything else. You're just not able to do that. So I think he has to pull the trigger on this Exploration at some point, and better sooner than later.
I think he just upkeeped the Rashad Port on Island, and I think you definitely want to wait until the draw step. Because Johnathan knows that second card. He's going to be deciding whether he wants to fetch it away or draw it for turn.
Yep.
And you want to let him make that decision before you, decide which land to tap. Because obviously now he's going to fetch for Tropical Island or Volcanic Island. I assume Tropical Island.
Yeah.
And you'd be able to tap down a green source, which is way better than just the second blue source here. So a little bit of missed value from Tom there by not waiting until the draw step. It's a strictly, I think, strictly superior play, I would say.
So now we're going to see a Wasteland.
Did he draw? Yeah, I think that's what he's solving, because we clarified that we were in the upkeep, I'm pretty sure. And now they're resolving it with the judge.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he will draw. I'll just take this Force Will.
Casual.
Huh. And that port's gone. And here comes Insectile Aberration.
Yeah. Turn 1 flipping, or turn 2 I should say, flipping a Delver with a Brainstorm is a play that's, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and against the less interactive your opponent's deck is, I think, the better it gets in general as a play. And Lands is one of those peculiarly non-interactive interactive decks.
Yeah, that's a really good way to describe it. A non-interactive interactive deck, as everything it tries to do is with lands. It kills you with lands. It locks you with lands. It disrupts you with lands. As you're going to see Rashad Port tap that a Tropical Island. And we are going to see a Brainstorm here from Johnathan. Or are we? We are. Okay. And it looks like what Tom is trying to do is to get it in such a situation where he can play his Exploration around a Spell Pierce. But again, when you're on a mulligan of 5, I feel like things have to break your way, especially when you're playing such a peculiar deck like Lands, that you just have to cast that Exploration and just hope for the best.
The bigger problem for Tom is that his hand just doesn't do anything. Like, he has a bunch of lands, but the only ones that actually do things are like, ports or wastelands. He doesn't have a way to actually keep the Delver off of his back. He doesn't have anything to progress his position. He can just put some more lands into play. That's it.
So we do see the Brainstorm resolve. And Exploration does resolve here. Looks like, oh, actually no, he's just casting it, trying to play around Spell Pierce, and Force Will is going to take care of that. So we'll see what's going to get removed, and it looks like it's going to be a Delver of...
This third Delver.
Delver of, how about Daze?
Yeah. Your opponent knows the Daze is there already. It's not going to counter a spell, most likely.
And does just pass the turn back. And, this is not a winning battle here for Tom. I'm just going to just try to port you and disrupt you that way, but I mean, he's already got a clock on the board. As you're going to see, Scalding Tarn get sacrificed here for likely Volcanic Island. He's going to add what I would assume to be 2 more Delver Secrets to the table.
Yeah, I'm trying to think actually.
Maybe Tarmogoyf's a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the actual size on the Tarmogoyf is. We can do a quick check here for enchantment, land, instant. I think is all we've got. Right?
Yeah, I don't believe we have a sorcery just yet.
Yeah, so that would be a 3/4. So that's just it's still a 3-turn clock. 2 Delvers could potentially be a 2-turn clock, but 1 Delver is going to be about this. Is going to be also a 3-turn clock, the same as the Tarmogoyf. So wow, he didn't get a Volcanic Island. That's actually really weird. With the Forked Bolt, that could have actually made a pretty big difference, because Forked Bolt is a sorcery for Tarmogoyf in addition to 2 damage, so it actually functions as effectively 3 to 4 damage depending on how many turns of attacks he does.
It looks like this thing is a 5/6. That seems a little
That's
excessive.
There we
go.
had it right.
Yeah, there we go.
So now he's going to attack his opponent to 8. And next turn he'll be able to put his opponent to 6 with Forked Bolt if he goes and gets a red source with something, but he didn't do that just now, so we're not really sure what's going on. Yeah, I think that was just a straight misfetch. We really needed to grab a Volcanic Island, put our opponent to 6, and just kill him. Unless he, ports the Volcanic Island, but that's a play that's has some risk and debate within itself, I think.
Yeah.
Just porting our lands is not going to actually win the game at this stage. Another play that's quite reasonable to make here is just to cast 1 Delver and not crack the fetch land. That keeps you from getting locked out of red during your upkeep from a Rishadan port.
Sure.
And also lets you, run a little draw selection off the top of your deck. See one you don't like during the upkeep with your Delver trigger, send it away. One of the interactions that's really instrumental to all Delver decks, I would say, in the formats where fetch lands are legal.
Now we're going to see an intuition here from Tom. It looks like he's searching at Mazeviths.
Yeah, he definitely, I imagine he's getting like Maze, Loam, and something else good. But maybe, he's two mazes? So that's reasonable.
Yeah, there's at least 2 that he's pulled from the front. He's also pulled a life from the Loam from the front through his absolutely beautiful land stack.
Yeah, shiny.
It is indeed shiny. I mean, it's got a Black Border Tropical Island out there as well, so looks like Tom may have been doing this for a little while.
Yeah, the issue with the maze loam is that your opponent can just give you loam and you're not going to be able to get enough mazes into play to not die.
Yep.
So I think Tom is coming to that conclusion himself. He's like, I need a better pile. What am I going to do here? Also very important is that 1 wasteland will just, throw this plan all out of whack.
Wasteland. Stupid, no fun wasteland. Tom is pining. He's not sure. All right, so there is Wasteland. Mazevith, and I think that back card's Life in the Loam.
I believe it is as well. I am not 100% sure, but I assume it is. So this is the end step, correct? Yeah, it is Life in the Loam. I
believe this might just be on Tom's main phase.
Okay, it's pretty relevant as to which it is.
Yeah, because he ported Johnathan on his turn to tap that Tropical Island. So
it's definitely so.
Tom just says, yeah, you can
John
take that Life in the Loam that
line.
you cannot cast. He's going to sacrifice that Wooded Foothills, push himself down to 7.
Which is a pretty important number now. Any sorcery leaves him dead.
Yeah.
Ponder off the top of the deck for Johnathan, dead.
Tropical Island gets tapped. You're going to see a Mana Bond come into play.
Ooh.
And he's actually going to, if he activates this, he's actually going to end up putting a sorcery into the graveyard by himself.
Yeah, that will kill him as well. So basically, he's not going to activate it, which is a wise maneuver. As we just said, it would kill him.
There's a Daze.
Daze does not kill him. He dodged. And now we're being punished for not having searched up that Volcanic Island here, as we surmised might occur.
So here comes the doofuses. You're going to see a Delver of Secrets. Now, one thing that he could have actually done to kill him this turn, oddly enough, Glenn,
Daze his Delver.
Daze his Delver of Secrets to get a creature in the graveyard for it to be exactly enough.
Ooh, I know my way around the Delver, my friend. These are the plays that I spend so much of my time looking for that I miss all the actually good plays that I should be making. But I'm like so happy when I find it. The one moment I'm like, yes, I'm supposed to counter my own spell. Success.
So now we are going to see a transmute here of Teleria West, which is going to act as a demonic tutor, which is going to search for, I believe that's a Glacial Chasm. I believe that's a promo one from the Vault's Realms, is it?
I think so, actually.
From the Vault's Lands. We already saw this once earlier, Johnathan Joe, but you're going to see Wasteland. Now you're going to see Life in the Loam, and this is going to get dazed, I would like to think.
Well, if we're not going to daze our Delver for the kill, we might as well daze the spell that he casts.
We are not dazing this.
Wow. I feel like this is really bad for us.
Yep, and now you're going to see Tom sacrifice that Misty Rainforest. Glacial Chasm is going to be red, as we already brought up on the screen for you guys, and that's the card that you actually have to daze there. If you're not going to, as you said, you're not going to daze your Delver Secrets for the kill. You have to daze that Life in the Loam when you have the opportunity.
I think Johnathan got tunnel vision. He couldn't think of a way that he would lose, and Tom has shown him one. Trigger.
Johnathan draws a Forked Bolt.
Yeah, this is going to get hairy.
Yep.
Now, what Jonathan's actually going to be looking to do at this stage is draw preferably a fetch land so he can't be ported off of a red source, and then draw a lightning bolt. So that while the Glacial Chasm hits the bin during Tom's turn, he can just bolt him in the face.
Yep. And so now the engine of the deck is online right now, as he's going to get back. He's casting Loam. You know, he couldn't pay the upkeep on the Glacial Chasm, so that dies. He is going to dredge Life in the Loam, cast it. He's already cast it, and now he is transmuting Teleria West. And basically what he's doing is he's just getting as many lands in the hand as he can each turn, so that his mana bond goes active. On the end step, he activates it, he dumps all the lands in play. As you see, Zoran Orb is the card that it's searched for now. So your little out of Lightning Bolt
no longer works.
Gone.
It looks like Tom has basically put this one under lock and key from this point. Johnathan had 2 opportunities that were both squandered, and that's all it took.
Yep.
Tom managed to turn a lost game into a 1-1 by just playing tight, not playing that mana bond, not using it. Keeping a game plan in action, and it just worked out for him.
So you see Wastelands are going to take out those tropical islands, and now, you know, if you're Tom, you just need to figure out how you want to go about using this Zoran Orb correctly, as we're going to see a brainstorm here from Johnathan. You know, he can sacrifice Glacial Chasm to Zoran Orb each turn, and you do see a heck of a brainstorm there, as you see both a Volcanic Island and a Lightning Bolt.
I believe those are Chain Lightnings, actually.
Are those Chain Lightnings? Okay.
I think so. I'm not sure, though. Are they bolts? No, they're bolts. Okay.
And now you see a Lightning Bolt here from Johnathan.
And it's not going to do any damage.
I'm fairly sure it's illegal. He can legally target him,
yeah,
but it's not going to deal any damage. So clearly Jonathan's first time playing against Glacial Chasm.
I think I could have surmised just from the play of the game that he was unfamiliar with what his opponent was attempting to do. You know, his decision to not daze the Life from the Loam, the mana bond trigger, just putting all those lands into play and suddenly shutting him out of the game. Like,
yep.
I don't really think he was certain as to what was going on, and now he sees exactly what's going on. I can't get out. That's what he sees.
Yeah, he's going to realize that very quickly, that I can't get out from underneath this, and he's actually just going to concede the game right now. You know, eventually Tom is going to end up killing him by punishing fire with Grove. You know, I'm sure, taking a look at the lands in his deck list, I want to see if he has anything like a Barbarian Ring. He has one Creeping Tar Pit that can actually end up getting the job done. So he has ways to get the job done, but he has established, for lack of a better term, the lock. And Johnathan has realized that and concedes the game.
I think Johnathan had perhaps the ability to like find a Force of Will in time, maybe, and just force a Life from the Loam on like a key turn.
Yep.
That's also a way he might have been able to get out, but that window was closing fast, and even then, like, his creatures would have to make up the difference of a lot of Zoran Orb damage. So he has to find that Life from the Loam very fast. Otherwise, the Zoran Orb will just getting too much life for it to even matter.
Yep.
And we were probably about a turn away from Force of Will mattering, so the Brainstorm locked him out once it didn't find Force of Will on the card.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that was a good lesson in missed opportunities there. And always nice to see a game get won on the tightest of margins. Anytime you win a game at 1 life, you know well, either you made some mistakes, or you maximized one of the most important resources in the game of Magic, which is your life total.
That's right. Using
it's
it as a resource.
just like your mana. You use it to play spells.
That's right. You have to use that bad boy as a resource, and Tom was able to do that game. You've got Johnathan's sideboard in front of you. Does he have any explicit graveyard hate over there?
Explicit graveyard hate? No. I would say not. Grim Lavamancer is the closest thing.
So no.
Yeah.
No is the answer.
He has a Life from the Loam of his own, which he may be tempted to bring in. I'm not actually sure if it's correct to do so. While it is true that the land set can Life from the Loam, or can Wasteland lock you, Life from the Loam is not actually an effective way to fight it, because when they Wasteland lock you, they do it for reals.
Yeah.
You're not coming back. You're not going to tooth and nail grind it out with your Life from the Loam. You're just going to be dead. So I don't really like that. His Sulfuric Vortexes are probably very attractive. I imagine he'll bring those in. He has 2 copies of that card. He might be tempted to bring in, Pithing Needle or an Ancient Grudge, just as a way to shut off that Zuran Orb. It's the kind of thing I think a lot of players, when they are faced with, having lost to something unexpected or new, they just think, oh, I'll just cite this answer to it. It makes sense. It's the only thing I saw that seems threatening. Obviously, he doesn't think he needs things like Fork Bolt or whatever. But Fork Bolt, actually deceptively useful in a Tarmogoyf deck. As we discussed in that game, it could have functioned as basically a Lightning Bolt by increasing the Tarmogoyf's power for an attack or two. So I think it might be too hasty to consider cards like that, quote, useless. Unquote. I actually like the Grim Lavamancer as a way to just another 1-drop to get in some damage, and also as a way to kind of attack your opponent's life total if they happen to go for that Glacial Chasm lock on their turn.
Yeah.
You can actually get in a little bit of a chip shot there. If you had a Grim Lavamancer and play in that game, he'd have just won. So.
Yeah.
Well, if you had a red source.
Yeah, which was part of the problem. Yeah, the Fork Bolt would have finished things off, but I understand your point, of course. Taking a look at Tom's sideboard, I'll rattle off the cards first for you guys. 1 Tormod's Crypt, 3 Sphere of Resistance, 3 Abrupt Decays, 4 Chalice of the Void, and 4 Dark Confidants. Those are the cards that he has access to. As far as cards that he's going to want to bring in, however, that's a different story. Chalice of the Void, I think, is the obvious one, but that one is much better when you're on the play than when you're on the draw. Chalice of the Void on 1 is the key thing that he's looking to do here. And I guess Mox Diamond is a way for him to play this on turn 1 on the draw, so that's something to keep in mind as well. The rest of the cards I don't foresee joining us here. Dark Confidant, not really so much for this matchup. You're looking for that card against decks that have very little to no removal, but you can best believe that Jonathan's going to keep those Lightning Bolts in. Could also keep those Fork Bolts in, and then Glenn brought up maybe brings in that Grim Lavamancer as well. Sphere of Resistance, not really for this matchup, more for your combo decks. Tormod's Crypt, Abrupt Decay, again, not so much for these matchups. So I think Chalice of the Void, since he can't play it on 1, and if you do play it on 1 against a Rug Delver deck,
that's game.
It's very, very close to game over, yes. So if you're able to play it before they actually take a turn, or after they, maybe ponder or brainstorm, you can really make things difficult for them.
Yeah, that would shut off about 29 cards in Jonathan's main deck. So, reasonable. Players shuffling up, discussing the game, no doubt, a little bit. That was really close. Johnathan, I think, thinking over a couple of his decisions here in the game.
I mean, it makes you wonder, who's the favorite in this matchup? Because many moons ago, when this was a more common matchup, lands against Rug Delver, it was actually very, very close. I played a lands deck at a side event in Grand Prix Boston 2008, 2009, where Ben Stark lost in the finals.
Yeah. I remember the tournament you're talking about.
Around that time. And I played against Ben Weinberg in the finals. He was playing Rug Delver. I was playing more lands in my deck. I was playing 42. But I played him in the Swiss and lost a very close matchup then, and we actually just ended up splitting the finals. Because the matchup was so close, we decided, kind of a crapshoot, just split the prize, move on with our lives. But the match is super, super close. It's not as common anymore. So I think, I think we can both agree that Jonathan was probably supposed to win game 1. But again, the matchup is super back and forth, because if Tom is able to ever get control like he did in that game, then there's no coming back.
Yeah.
It's kind of the thing with Rug Delver, where the Rug Delver deck needs to stay ahead, because if the opponent does something incredibly powerful, and you see this with Gristlebrand decks, if they ever get a Gristlebrand into play, it's just over. They can't come back from stuff like that.
That's exactly what I was gonna go to. I know Matt Costa versus Reed Duke, when Reanimator first started hitting the big time again. Matt Costa, playing the rug deck that he played a lot in Legacy and enjoys, and Reed, innovating that Reanimator deck for the time. He just put it in a Gristlebrand, and Matt was just like, yeah, like that's all. Like once it's in play, that's literally I'm dead.
I cannot win.
Yeah. Like you don't even have to draw 7. Please, if you do, I might have a shot. Like
that's right.
Just beat me to death with your giant 7/7 lifelink.
It is a wrap, as they say. There's no coming back. So, if you're Johnathan, you just have to, again, get a clock going, establish a Nimble Mongoose or a Delver of Secrets, get that thing flipped into an Insectile Aberration or get Threshold of that Mongoose, and, disrupt your opponent while you're killing them. You have to get it done fast because, as you saw in Game 1, if Tom is able to establish, Mana Bond or Exploration or get Life from the Loam going, there's not a lot of ways for Johnathan to disrupt that, and it does take a little while to get going, but if it does fully get active, the game is going to end very quickly, and there's no coming back from it. So, as Johnathan playing Rug Delver, that's his job, and for Tom, his job is to get everything set up as quickly as he can, and on a mulligan to 5, it clearly takes you a little longer than you'd like, but he was able to get everything set up, and that was it.
Lands is a deck that does not actually get punished very heavily by mulligans. Because its engine creates a great deal of card advantage. Life from the Loam obviously great at undoing the disadvantage of a mulligan. And because the engine takes a little while to get underway, the easiest way to die when you mulligan is to just getting beat up while, you fail to make plays, or amusingly enough, just getting like actual mana screwed, which can strangely happen with the lands deck. While it does run 36, not all of those lands are what we call lands.
Yeah.
Things like Tabernacle, Maze of Ith, these lands will not actually help you cast your spells. While they may buy you some time in games against some players, they won't against others. And even a card like Maze of Ith or Tabernacle can be overcome given enough time. I've seen many a lands deck actually lose the game to getting mana screwed.
I've been on the other side of that. It is the definition of frustration, my friend.
In the finals of the Detroit Legacy Open, actually, Bobby Kovacs, I believe, won that tournament with lands, and the game he lost in the finals to Caleb Durward was to just playing like one land and die in a horrible fire.
Can't do anything. But you do see a Delver of Secrets here. You see a Zoran Orb there from Tom. Let's see if Johnathan considers this worth fighting over. As you do see a Sulfuric Vortex in his hand. You also see a Life from the Loam as well for Johnathan.
Yeah.
Don't know if he has a second land over there. And then Tom plays that Wooded Foothills, and we'll see if he has any one drop. And he does not. But you do see a Chalice of the Void and an Abrupt Decay.
Chalices, I believe. Johnathan's going to need to keep those Chalices off the board, or it's going to be lights out. He'll be all in on that Sulfuric Vortex, which is not a bad place to be in the matchup, as we described. He's short a land, and he did bring in that Life from the Loam, as we predicted he might. I think he really probably should just be brainstorming for a land here. He wants that Vortex in play as quickly as possible, and he has 2 other 1-drop creatures. So if he finds a land, then he can just play 1 creature, which is the option he had instead of brainstorming anyway. Looks like he did hit a land, not the one he wanted though. It's a tropical island. He's going to throw back Life from the Loam and something else. And he can Spell Pierce, but he's going to play a creature instead. Oh, no.
Or is he? No, just
attack.
across for 3.
At a minimum, you attack first, but...
So if you have anything you want to get signed, anything you want to purchase...
So Tom is going to draw a card here. He is going to play a Windswept Heath. And you see that way he resolves these, making sure that the green light is on. Not really playing around Stifle, but wants to make sure that these are resolving instead of just assuming they're going to resolve. And you can get yourself in a little bit of a legal trouble that way.
Yeah, I actually think I would definitely have played a creature here if I'm Johnathan. He's a little unfamiliar with the matchup, and when you got locked out by a spell-laden deck, keeping your Spell Pierce open, pretty tempting. But in reality, lands operates in a very specific threshold. And I think if he just, adds a Nimble Mongoose, which is one of the more difficult guys to remove from the board because Maze of Ith doesn't do anything effectively.
You're going to see Delver of Secrets come across here. Excuse me, Insectile Aberration. And
That's
Abrupt
right.
Decay is going to take care of that.
Can't counter that. Well, now, I just want to get guys on the board. I would probably go Delver Nimble Mongoose.
I guess the thing is, if his plan is to leave up Spell Pierce, he's not going to deviate from that plan. He doesn't have a reason to yet either. So I think if you're going to have that plan, I think you stay with it. It's just you grow for the Burn Willows here from Tom, and he is going to cast a Chalice of the Void for 1 that is going to get Spell Pierced, I'd like to think.
Yeah. Of all the spells to Spell Pierce, this one, pretty big deal.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Spell Pierce takes care of that Chalice of the Void. Now Johnathan will check. Life from the Loam is the card he drew, and he did not reveal that to Delver of Secrets.
Yeah, that's really awkward.
Now you see a Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, like, see, the problem with our play to this point, we kept that Spell Pierce open for so long, but we could have played a creature on one of those turns. It was just for free. The Chalice could not have landed through days, and it would have given us another beater that's just in play. In the case of Nimble Mongoose, it's one that can't be answered by Maze of Ith, which is important. And now the Nimble Mongoose is instead going to wind up just dead because Chalice of the Void will come down and lock us out of being able to cast it.
And so there is a Chalice of the Void for 1. You see Jonathan's hand of Nimble Mongoose, Sulfuric Vortex, Daze, and Life from the Loam.
We missed out on 2 damage with our Delver, so we'll have to see if it comes back to haunt us. If we hit an instant or sorcery now, you know, it might not be so bad.
And so there's a Daze and Life from the Loam, which is a momentary way to pause some of the problems here. But see, for reveal, nope, which is going to be a Volcanic Island. The way that he's drawing his card to reveal for that is very dangerous, as we saw him miss it last time. So now we're going to see an attack for 5. He's going to put Tom down to 9. Tom really going to be needing a Maze of Ith or some way to stave these beats.
Do you just cast the Life from the Loam here with the trying to dredge it next turn and hit that other red for Sulfuric Vortex? Because if you can get that Vortex in play, you know, it's a pretty big game.
Yeah, it changes absolutely everything.
And so many of the spells in our deck that we are going to draw actually just don't do anything. And with a Delver in play especially, like, we get to check the top of the deck, see if we want to flip the Delver, if it's a good spell at all. I think I would have just cast the Life from the Loam for nothing here, with the plan being check with Delver. If it's a spell I want, don't dredge. If it's a spell I don't want, which is, as we discussed before, half my deck, then go ahead and dredge.
And so now we're going to see a Life from the Loam here. It dredges a couple lands, most of them, Ghost Quarter and a Maze of Ith. Maze of Ith was brought back. It was put into play, and so now you see that there. So now what Tom just needs now is a way to put more than one land into play, be it a Mana Bond or an Exploration. So Jonathan's going to untap, he's going to draw, and he finds a Ponder, and I'm very curious about...
Yeah, we have tunnel visioned the fact that our Delver even exists, I think, in John's head. He's just not thinking about it.
His game mechanics with the Delver of Secrets are very, very poor right now.
So he's missed out on some significant damage here. He also we didn't get that Nimble Mongoose on the board, and now this Maze of Ith is holding off our Tarmogoyf, which... Nimble Mongoose is not held back by such things. He knows his way around a maze.
Yes.
He's a good navigator.
Maybe we'll even find him in a Dragon's Maze? Do you think? Maybe not? Okay.
Probably not.
That's fine.
But he could figure his way out, I'm sure.
That's true.
He's very nimble.
So we see the dredging here of Grove of the Burned Willows, an Exploration, and a Mox Diamond.
Not exciting. Not exciting.
Now you're going to see Ghost Quarter.
Ooh, well, we know that we have an
that
island.
Volcanic Island. We know he does have a basic island. We'll see if he chooses to search for one. And Tom, being the nice, consummate professional, reminding him something I know that you would never do.
Hey, man, they know if they have islands.
You would
I'm not gonna
never
assume.
do that.
I mean, when I Ghost Quarter most Rug players, I would assume they don't have an island.
That's true. And so Life of the Loam is going to resolve, going to get a couple lands back, pass the turn. And the thing for Tom is he has to make the decision of if he wants to keep dredging or stop dredging. And if he stops dredging, he needs to find one of these ways to put more lands into play. And if he keeps dredging, I feel like he's looking for either Maze of Ith or a cycling land to be able to start putting his deck, on steroids.
I think we just keep dredging. Like, I'm not that scared. He reveals this time. It's a Delver. Alright, so we might have some action here.
So
Casting Life from the Loam, I assume. But like we discussed before, this isn't actually really much of a winning battle. Like, he's just going to strip minus again.
Ladies and gentlemen, Draft Challenge Round 2 pairings are now available. Please see your judge, Judge Max, who currently has the pairings holding above his head.
Goes in, plays it. He has to play it. He's not going to be able to cast Sulfuric Vortex without getting a red source already in play. He's only going to get in 3 damage here with Delver.
So Maze of Ith will target the Tarmogoyf.
should technically be untapped, but that's not going to be relevant.
And so now you see Life from the Loam is dredging a Rishadan Port, a Tabernacle Pendraveil, and a mystery card, and we might see Tabernacle join the party here.
Tabernacle will definitely, put a thorn in Jonathan's side, but realistically, Tom's his Zoran Orb can only really race that Delver for so long. Needs to find another maze and shut it down.
And I guess, if he's strictly looking for another Mazavith, as you see, he's going to play a Glacial Chasm and sacrifice the Taiga here. If he's strictly looking for another Mazavith, then continuing to dredge is perfectly fine.
Yeah. Note that the Glacial Chasm is slightly better than taking 3 damage from a Delver.
Now that is probably going to be a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
As you do see Sulfuric Vortex here, a card that we'll bring up on the screen for you guys. Tom's taking a look, and dealing through damage each way is a problem, but the life gain part of it is much more of the issue.
Right. Tom is now in a situation where he has multiple cards that will eventually kill him one way or another. Glacial Chasm, Sulfuric Vortex, an unchecked attacker. Has to answer all of them.
And so after processing that information that he can no longer gain life, he's considering likely, all right, well, am I supposed to sacrifice some lands here to the Zoran Orb, or how am I going to go out winning this game? Because again, the part of the power of this deck, as he's going to sacrifice 2 lands, is to be able to play more than 1 land a turn. And right now he cannot do that. So his deck is playing extremely fair when it needs to be able to play unfair.
Glacial Chasm keeps those guys at bay. And he's going to go ahead and pay the life this turn.
So he's going to move down to 7, and we'll get a counter on it.
Probably paying the life again next turn, as 4 damage is still, significantly less than he'd be taking. The turn after that, it gets much dicier.
He does take a draw step this turn, and I'm perfectly okay with that, because he needs to find a way to be able to play more than 1 land in a turn. He needs to find Exploration or a Mana Bond, so his deck can just go off.
Well, he still has the Chalice for 1 in play.
Well, then I have literally no idea what I'm talking about.
He's going to be working on certainly getting, I think, another Mazavith, and maybe he needs to find Abrupt Decay. I think that's like his only out to the Sulfuric Vortex, right? Like just another one of those. He has Engineered Explosives as well, which via Academy Runes he can find with Life from the Loam's dredging, but that costs a lot. I don't think he'll be able to get to that in time.
Well, I guess, my question, now is then, if he needs to find a Mazavith, why take a draw step?
Well, I don't think that, just Mazavith isn't enough anymore because of the Vortex.
Because of the Vortex, okay.
Between Vortex and Chasm, no matter what he does, he's going to take some damage. So he has to actually, figure out exactly what to do there.
I guess, is there any way to get out of this situation?
I think peeling in Abrupt Decay in a very timely fashion is about it. Ooh, Wasteland will also put a nice thorn in his side. So a peeled Volcanic Island followed by a peeled Wasteland for Johnathan, and it looks like he might have managed to do exactly what Tom did to him in Game 1 and snatch a game that looked all but lost right back.
Yeah, Chalice of the Void is interesting in this deck because obviously it's very good against Rug Delver, being able to shut off the majority of their spells, but shutting off 2 of your more important cards in Exploration and Mana Bond, which total he has 6 copies of, might be a little bit more damaging. And of course, there will be draws where you can, play an Exploration and then you Chalice them. Those draws do exist, but if you do it in the reverse order, obviously that's a huge problem. So,
well, if you think about it, the reverse order really shouldn't come up very much because, if you had an Exploration and a Mana Bond in your hand with a Chalice, you would just have played one of them first.
yes.
So basically, it only really comes up in the turns where you draw a card after casting Chalice of the Void, which in the Life from the Loam deck is actually not that common. Once it enters play, you mostly start going about your business.
You see, Tom does play a Glacial Chasm yet again, but I don't think there's any coming back from this situation. Jonathan's life total is a little bit lower right now because of the Sulfuric Vortex. He's taken 2 hits from it so far, but, that's going to happen. And he's going to be able to do this, but he's not going to be able to continuously do this.
Right.
and he realizes that, and he's going to concede the game. So
Tom
does
just got
resolve
really flooded that game.
does resolve a Chalice of the Void
Handful of lands.
on 1, but can't take advantage of it.
Yeah, that is not a situation that Rug Delver is commonly able to escape from.
You know, there's some interesting cards that people sideboard in against Rug Delver. We've seen it in the past that, in theory, are complete backbreakers against them. One of them is Chalice of the Void on 1.
Yep.
The other one is Blood Moon. And we have seen, I have definitely seen games while commentating where, you know, the opponent is able to get their namesake card that they sideboard into play, and they lose anyway. And, you know, that just leads me to believe that, in theory, those are good ideas, but in practice or in execution, they don't work as well as you'd normally think they do. You know, there are certainly situations in games where if you do play a Chalice of the Void on 1 against Rug Delver, that their deck just kind of flounders around and it can't work. And, you know, then it looks very good, and the same can be said with Blood Moon, but there are also situations where they've already put a few things on the board, they've already cantripped a few times, then your Chalice is too late, or your Blood Moon doesn't really have much of an effect. So, you know, the cards like that I'm not particularly in love with against these decks.
Yep.
And that's part of the reason you can kind of compare Chalice of the Void in 1 and Counterbalance plus Senses Vine Top, how good that is against Rug Delver, but the deck that has top and Counterbalance actually interacts many other ways with the deck as well.
Yeah, very true.
You know, swords and plows and paths and everything else. So.
And Counterbalance is a very interesting card against Rug. One of the ways that Rug players actually tried to beat the Mirror when the deck first started, you know, hitting the big time in its newest incarnation. The Hatfield brothers, I know, were a big fan of the Counterbalance sideboard. Played it in a number of opens, as well as, I believe, Grand Prix Atlanta, I think, was the Legacy Grand Prix.
Yep.
Yep.
I haven't seen the Hatfields for a little while.
Yeah, I don't know where they went.
I hope I see them at the Invitational. Those are 2 really good Legacy players.
Yep, always interesting to see what they brought.
Man, they always did the brew. I wouldn't even say they brew. They just always played decks that were pretty well positioned. Like the times they brought High Tide, it's just like, oh, no one has any hate for this, and they obviously know how to play the High Tide pretty well, and would do quite well with the decks. So it's always nice to see that what those guys were playing. All right, the ultimate game 3. So you see at least Tom going back to the sideboard for a minute here.
Yeah, I think adjusting a little bit. Johnathan, I assume he probably adjusted a little bit too. He got to see, you know, a more robust game from the Lands player, even though he lost that one. He got to see a lot more cards from the deck, see some of the mechanics that his opponent's trying to put into play with looping Glacial Chasm, things like that. You know, more fully understands what's going to happen this time around.
It's kind of funny, you know, you saw that game that Johnathan played game 1, and, you know, he made a pretty big error by not dazing that Life from the Loam, and, you know, it's easy to understand that he doesn't really have an idea of what this deck is doing. Then let's say that you strictly just watch coverage of SCG Live for Legacy. It's not like you see Lands decks on here very much. No. So if you've never played Legacy before, and you don't really know a ton about the format, and your friend just handed you a Rug Delver deck, and you're playing against this deck that's playing, you know, Rashadan Ports and Mana Bonds and stuff, and you don't really have much of an idea what's going on, it's pretty easy to misplay against it. And then by the time you do misplay against it, as we saw game 1, it's, oops, too late. No coming back now.
Learning Legacy decks, especially the strange ones, you know, it just takes time, practice, and experience. I know I started playing Legacy online. One of the principal reasons was to, you know, have a better understanding of what I was seeing at opens, because, you know, I got to see a lot of decks play. I wouldn't actually understand the games, the dynamics. Makes it more difficult to commentate, but once you start playing actual games yourself, you see the other side, you see, you know, exactly which cards are important. It makes it a lot easier to understand what's going on, and it also makes you just a more well-rounded player. When you're switching to a new deck, you know, you can take that same information into battle with you.
Yeah. So game 3 will be underway for you guys. If you are just joining us, Senator Phillips, Glenn Jones here in the booth. We appreciate you guys watching today on this Sunday, taking a dip away from the basketball tournament to join us. You can interact with Glenn and I at SCG Live, or hashtag your tweets with SCGKC. Round 6 of 8. Don't forget AJ Soccer is here as well. He's just on his break. We've had enough of his blue hair for right now.
Yeah.
You'll have to deal with that next round.
Tom, staring at his hand. It looked like he almost just immediately mulliganed, and then he, you know, doubled back.
Oh, it looked like he did want a mulligan. All right. We got
we got one of those no land keeps from lands, maybe. Oh, he's got one. I mean, obviously he had to.
Yeah, he certainly has
for a
one.
Diamond, but you know what I mean. It looks like he's got more. I don't know. That's interesting.
All right, discards Caracas.
That's not a very good land on this match.
Is this a Chalice for one?
Oh, that is a chalice for one.
Was that the fake reach?
That was.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was an excited reach. Maybe he was like, "Whoa, let me square my deck away real quick here. I want to make sure everything's in order before I go ahead and cast my game-winning spell immediately."
Yeah. So Chalice for one has shut off, as we're going to see Rishadanpur top that Tropical Island. Yeah, it has shut off quite a few cards. As you see Scalding Tarn off the top, we see 2 Nimble Mongoose, a Brainstorm. The one card I know that he can't cast in his hand is Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, I saw a Tarmogoyf. He will be able to cast that at some point.
And I think it's pretty safe to say that we're not going to see a Chalice for 2.
Yep. We're going to cycle a Tranquil Thicket, and then I imagine we're going to cast Exploration. Oh, we drew a Wasteland, maybe.
And we do not want to cast Exploration. Don't make the same mistake.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we had Chalice in the way. Haha, you're done.
for some reason, that's so easy to do.
Well, that's interesting, actually, that I guess, did we just draw the Exploration last turn? Because we could have, turn 1'd it and then Chaliced.
Yeah.
So I guess we did just draw it last turn.
And he draws another Exploration here, and if I'm Tom, I'm Wastelanding right away.
Yeah,
and you're going to see a Chalice.
Wastelanded last
you're
turn.
going to see Chalice for 2 now, too. So now it looks like to me that Johnathan is locked out of the game, and I'm actually okay with him casting this now because he has a Creeping Tar Pit, and he's just going to go 3, 3,
Yep.
3, the rest of the game. Now, he has shut off his own Life in Loam, so this is a little bit risky, especially if Johnathan draws a Wasteland.
He does have to fear Wasteland. That is the only card Johnathan has that actually, does much of anything. But in the meantime, Creeping Tar Pit gonna get some.
Yep.
I'm actually curious. What if Johnathan does draw Wasteland? How does Tom get out? Do we know the way?
Let's see if we can find the way. All right, I see 1 Crucible of Worlds.
That's a way.
That we'd like to believe is still in his deck. He has 3 copies of Intuition. It depends on what he wants the Intuition for. And
Wasteland, there it is.
There's...
Oh, he Wasteland Rishadanpur. No, that's the wrong one. Well, it bought him some time, but it's not going to help him very much.
Yeah.
Johnathan probably just doesn't know that most land decks only run 1 Creeping Tar Pit. He's thinking he'll just draw another one, continue beating me to death. I need to be able to cast my spell, so I'll take that Rishadanpur out of there. But he actually has used the exactly wrong logic. The deck always runs 4 Rishadanpurs.
Yes. Yes.
It's much more likely he found another one of those and continue to lock you out of the lands.
We'll see if Jonathan's able to draw another Wasteland, and what he'll target with this one. As you see, he does draw a Sulfuric Vortex, and he's just going to continuously discard here all of his 1-drops, as those are never going to come into play. Force of Will, the card drawn here for Johnathan, so he's just going to concede the game, frustrated that he is never going to be able to cast any spells whatsoever, and Creeping Tar Pit's just going to keep on attacking.
Hey, he could have found a Sulfuric Vortex.
Well, he had one in his hand, he just couldn't cast it, and it would have done killing himself. So